weekend, if you don't go to the Bagel Club, delicious food. Okay, the first thing I'll say is I am not a huge fan of Mayor de Blasio. I am not a big fan of Mayor de Blasio. I was actually supporting Tony Avella when he was running against Mayor de Blasio for mayor, and unfortunately he dropped out. It was very, very upsetting to me personally because I think Tony would make a fantastic mayor. That's just my opinion. Okay, so let's touch on the monuments issue. You know, I've watched a ton of debates about this over the last 2 weeks. I've seen people say, well, where is this going to stop? And you know, George Washington was a slave owner, and this person and that person, and it becomes a very slippery slope. I think the latest one was Christopher Columbus. Again, okay, so I am not a politician, guys. I think that's pretty obvious from the way that I'm talking to you. I'm sorry? I'm not a politician, sir. I've never been elected. If I become elected, technically I will be an elected official / politician, but that's not the way I approach things, which I think you can hear me talking here again. I'm not giving you platitudes about stuff. This is not the way I operate. So basically what it comes down to is this. I'm a historian. That's part of what I do as a land use professional. I create historic districts by getting areas landmarked to stop beautiful neighborhoods from being destroyed. So you've got situations where, again, a flashpoint occurred. A flashpoint occurred, and it's created this huge, huge reaction across the country. And I think part of this, and this was, I think, the most important thing that I heard in the last 2 days. The problem is that monuments were put up to celebrate the losing side. That's what set all of this off. Now, why do I say that? Because all of this started because monuments were created to the Confederacy. The Confederacy lost the Civil War, and those monuments have kept alive a lot of the things that I personally find unbelievably aberrant in this country, okay? That is what is creating the problem that is then now swirling out into every other monument that is standing in the entire country. So I think it's a little crazy is what's going on here. I think that the problem is that Mayor de Blasio, who I think his entire positions on many, many issues are not only way off, but they're way off to what the constituents want, which is very, very important. Lots and lots of people. If there was someone strong enough to take him down right now, he would not be mayor in November. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be an opponent, even the guy that I support, unfortunately. Sal Albanese, who debated him last week and did a good job. Sal's a good guy, but it's going to be very tough for him to beat him in the primary. We have someone who has been running for national office as a mayor since the day he got elected. We have someone who is a political operative since he was in his 20s, who is mayor. Being a political operative does not translate into being a good politician. And I think this is part of the problem. I would consider myself to be fairly liberal on a lot of issues. But you know what I tell people when they ask me what my ideology is? My ideology is neighborhood. That is my ideology. Because if your neighborhood is bad, and you're having a terrible time where you live, what does the other stuff matter, frankly? It becomes secondary, right? It's your personal life that's most important. I mean, I hate to be selfish about it, but you want to have a nice life, and you want the people around you to have a nice life, and you want your neighborhood to be a nice place to live. If your neighborhood is taken care of, then you can start looking at bigger issues. A council member represents a neighborhood. They also talk about things on a bigger issue. But you won't see me, for example, getting involved in huge issues that, frankly, a council person isn't supposed to get involved in, because I'm much more focused on the daily nuts and bolts of running a district. That's really what it's about to me. So, again, unfortunately, the mayor tried to create a national platform for herself. I would say it's failed fairly miserably. But in the meantime, we have to deal with the fallout. And the monuments issues is one of those. The affordable housing issue, which We do have an affordability crisis in the city, but his response to it is dead wrong. And as a land use person, I can tell you it is dead wrong. This is not the way to go about it. And same thing with the homelessness crisis, which we also have in the city. His response to it, my mother is a social worker, just to let you know. So I always say, well, I'm the son of a social worker. What does that mean? It means I've had social work stuff stuffed down my head since I was a little kid. I know a lot of policy about social work and social issues and social welfare. I can tell you straight out, we have 60,000 homeless people in this city. How many homeless people are in our district? Does anybody know? 2? 40 families. 40 families. Maybe 2, plus 2 more. It's about 40 families. In Crown Heights, Brooklyn, it's 6,000 families. Where do you put homeless shelters and the social service net that they need to survive? You put them in the places that need them. You do not start dumping homeless shelters all over the city of New York, especially when there's no social services to go with those homeless shelters. This is part of the problem. So it's a similar thing with affordable housing. No one is against having affordable housing in this district. It's the way that he has created the policy movement. So again, the one thing you need to know as a council person, any land use decision, remember it comes back to land use? Any land use decision, guess what? The council person has a veto in his own or her own district. So if I'm your council person and someone wants to put something that the constituents don't want, you can bet more than $1 on me that I will make sure that that will not happen, because I will agree with you 99% of the time anyway, just as a personal thing. A perfect example of this is the Bayside Jewish Center. Does everybody know the Bayside Jewish Center? Formerly the Bayside Jewish Center? Okay. 2 years ago, the current council member announced by press release, we are going to have a new high school, and it's going to be located at the Bayside Jewish Center. There will be 800 kids there. That being said, now that we're going to have a high school, we all have to come together as a community. Do we want a Bronx High School of Science or a Jamaica High School? Which frankly is an incredibly racist response, in my opinion, because the coding on that is white, Asian / black. Okay, that's just my personal opinion. Myself, the senator, the community civic groups, we all organized. I want to tell you something. The principals of the other high schools, by the way, this is 3 blocks away from Bayside High School, right? The principals of the other high schools all wrote letters of opposition to the Department of Education, putting their own jobs on the line, and in fact, they were threatened that if they did that, they were going to be transferred, okay? We got over 4,000 letters and petitions against this. We ultimately turned around every other elected official, even Paul Vallone's own allies, which is pretty amazing, I have to be honest with you. The point is, the Bayside Jewish Center is not a very big piece of property. Putting an 800-student school on this small piece of property would have been disastrous. Has anybody seen what's happened at where Kyle Brothers used to be, on 48th Avenue? They squeezed an elementary school onto a piece of property between 40 houses. It's a disaster what's gone on there. And again, I come from an education background, and I think it's a disaster. So the fact is, this school would have gone through had we not massively organized against it. The community board voted against it 35-1. Half an hour later, Paul Vallone put out a press release at midnight saying, I am now against the school. After he had been threatening and telling everybody, the school's going to go there, it's going to go there, it's going to go there. For the next 3 weeks, he then tried to say, well, I may be against it, but the school's construction authority has never dropped a contract before. They've never done it. And it was just a lot of nonsense. 3 weeks later, the school's construction authority dropped the school for the first time ever where they already signed a contract. They got out of the contract. That's about the right way to approach things is when, as a council person, that would never, ever, ever, ever happen with me. Because I believe that the community should decide what happens, not the people who are in charge. You put me in charge, not the other way around. And I think that's really important for the people of this district to remember. I am answerable to you. I do not just show up and say, hi everybody, here's my FaceTime, gotta go. That's not what it's about. So I hope that answers your question in a fairly large answer, but it's significant. I wanted everybody to understand that this is not someone who's looking out for the best interests of the district, in my opinion, which is why I'm his opponent. So, are there any other questions? That's it? Thank you, everybody. I will be here if you want to talk to me privately, and I hope you enjoyed the brunch again, and thanks so much.